Welcome back to the Contemporary Crusader. Today we're asking the question, is the Springfield Prodigy just as good? So the Springfield Prodigy, is it just as good? Specifically, is it just as good as a Staccato P? The reason I'm comparing the two is a couple reasons. One, I have a Staccato P, so naturally I can compare it to something I already have. It's the only 2011 or double stack 1911 that I have. And two, Staccatos have kind of become the benchmark for the 2011 world. Now, technically, they are the only 2011s because they have that name trademark. But when we're talking 2011s as a general term, or double stack 1911s, whatever you want to call it, Staccato has kind of become the standard, I guess you could say. It's not saying it's the best. It's not saying it's the worst. It's just saying that it's kind of that, I don't even want to say middle of the road, but it's just they have some of the best marketing out of any of their 2011 companies. They are in the hands of more professional shooters and professional, law enforcement, armed professionals, and it's, kind of taken the industry by storm. And it's, I believe that the Staccato specifically, once STI went to that and kind of rebranded, that became, that kind of catapulted other companies into making these guns. So I think it's fair to say that the Staccato is the benchmark. It's a quality, reliable, well-made gun with a good track record. And like I said, it's being used by police around the country. I don't know about military units. I'm sure certain units have at least tested it or fielded it in some way, but I don't know that. But it's kind of become a household name, especially in the 2011 world. So that's the long answer why I'm comparing the two. Now, the Prodigy has been out for a little bit now, maybe a couple years. I have not had really any hands-on with it until recently, when my buddy Corey, who owns this one, let me borrow it for the video. So I took that opportunity. I shoot the Staccato quite a bit, and so I thought it would be an interesting video to kind of talk about the two. And is the Prodigy, even though it's over $1,000 cheaper, is it just as good? So we'll go into that. But first I'm going to talk about what about the Prodigy I liked right off the bat. So just to go over this, setup. This is how Corey has it set up. It's a Holosun 507C, Surefire X300. He added the Dawson Precision Magwell and the Dawson Precision guide rod assembly. So besides that, it's a stock gun. He has maybe less than 1,000 rounds through the gun in total, and so it's fairly new. Now, the first day really that I got this, I took it apart. I was dry firing it, cycling it over and over, annoying the family and the wife and all that, just kind of playing with it safely. So what did I notice about it right off the bat? Well, I noticed that the slide to frame fit was very good. You never know, because and I'm not like a 2011 or 1911 expert, but when something feels quality, and there's a lot of 1911s and 2011s on the market where you pick them up and they're just rattling and they grind. This one, it felt extremely well, which is pretty, pretty normal and to be expected with Springfield 1911s. I've always been fairly impressed with the slide to frame fit on their guns. But that right off rip, I was like, oh, that's pretty nice. The safety, not a huge fan of their safety. Their thumb safety is aesthetically. I don't like how it curves down and then comes to a point. And I also felt that this was a little mushy. The fit on this wasn't great, but it's not terrible, but it definitely is something I'd probably replace. The grip safety, the blending is good. You know, they did some nice blending there. It doesn't stick out or protrude. So that's nice. But I think that it could use some work as far as the engagement. You have to press pretty far down for the engagement. It's like, you know, I think the standard or what you'd want is about a third of the way, where that you can see, I mean, that's almost all the way down. So I don't know if it's really getting a good focus, but you have to really engage that grip safety, which I don't like. The grip safety is nice, I guess, for, you know, whatever. It's a nice added safety feature, and it's kind of, you know, it's just the norm with 1911s, obviously. But I don't want to have to, I want to be able, in worst case scenario, to not have the best grip on this, or say I lose some kind of strength in my hand and I can't get a real solid grip. Whatever the reason is, I don't want to have to get a really, you know, I don't want to have a full-on, like, solid grip to engage that. So I would, if this were mine, I would, I'd work on that or replace that altogether, but I probably would just work on the engagement a little bit and try to get it closer to that third of the way pressed down before it engages. The trigger was good. I mean, I kind of expected it not to be good, because I had heard a lot of reports that the trigger kind of sucked. I didn't think that. The trigger's fine. It's not the best trigger, but I don't think it's leaps and bounds above the Staccato trigger. It's just, it might be a little bit heavier, and I don't have the trigger gauge with me right now, but I can check that. I'll add that into the video later. But I would say that it's probably about 4.5, 5 pounds. I could be wrong on that. I'm not, you know, I don't have that level of autism where I can just tell what a trigger pull is, but it feels all right. So you hit that wall right there and engages. So it's nice, crisp trigger, no issues there. I'd had heard that it was kind of mushy, whatever. Another thing, and this is a common problem that you see online, is that disconnector does like to hook up onto that slide right about there. So I believe that Corey said he went with a heavier spring to kind of work through that, but that's something that I would change. And pretty much any of the MIM parts, eventually I would swap out if I were to have one of these. But definitely working on that disconnector where it hooks right there. I can see that being a possible cause of a malfunction later. Not having enough, when it gets real dirty, not having enough force to pick up around and get a good feed on there. So there's that. The one thing, or a couple things, but one thing in particular that I really liked about this over the Staccato was the countersunk channel for the slide stop there. To me, that's something that should be on every modern 1911, 2011. I don't know why Staccato doesn't do it, but I really appreciated that. I've noticed with the Staccato, sometimes if I'm not really paying attention and I get a little bit sloppy grip, or I start really gripping down as hard as I can and I'm pushing into the frame, my thumb ends up resting right there, and as it's cycling, it starts working at that slide stop. So that's lefty problems. Most of you guys don't have to worry about that, but to me it seems like it should be a something that's in every 2011. I guess they could argue that, oh well, it's harder to disassemble, you might need a punch or something to push it through, you know, whatever. But that's something that I really liked about this. And then another thing that I really liked was the kind of the machining from slide to frame, how it's flush going down, instead of being ledged like a lot of the 1911, 2011 you see. It's a real nice clean look down. Beyond that, the finish is Cerakote, which you know, I don't dislike Cerakote. I prefer like an embedded coating, or like a chemical reaction like a nitride or DLC, but Cerakote's just fine. It does wear quicker, and you know, whatever. But this one thing I'll say is this really gives me like early STI vibes, like the STI Tactical 5.0. This is, to me, it looks like that. Very similar lines, similar serrations, the black Cerakote. When I grab this, I'm like, oh, this actually I used to have a STI Tactical, and it feels and just kind of looks a lot like that. So overall, really clean looking gun, and you know, I enjoyed shooting it. Now I'll just kind of go over to the Staccato here and show you what I was talking about. So you have that ledge right there, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, I don't dislike it, but I did think it looked really clean on the Prodigy. The side stop rod, or whatever you want to call that, the channel is not countersunk, which I would like to see, and I might even add at some point. The grip on the this is the newer tack grip. It looks very similar to the Prodigy. I will say that just from a grippiness standpoint, the Prodigy is way more grippy, but without being too abrasive. It just seems like it catches your hand, excuse me, really well. So I did like that. The slide or the magazine release, this one's actually a 10.8 Performance. I swapped that out. But on the Prodigy, I kind of like the factory one better than the factory Staccato. So the Staccato one is just a smooth finish. There's no serrations on it or no checkering. It's a little extended, a little more extended than I wanted, talking about the Staccato. So I like that, and it just seemed like it engages a little bit better, but that might be just reading into it too much. But shooting it, let's talk about shooting it, and I'll roll some footage. Now, this isn't like a comprehensive review, especially on the longevity of the Prodigy, so maybe there'll be issues with this one after as many rounds as I have with the Staccato, which is probably upwards of 6,000 rounds for the Staccato, and I've had it since like 2020. So I'm very comfortable with the Staccato, and I've been very happy with the reliability overall. So I can't say that the Prodigy will have that same reliability, but that being said, the Staccato has had some issues. It's not, there's like, you're talking about guns, and yeah, you want something that's overall fairly reliable, but every piece of machinery or tool is going to have potential for failure. So on the Staccato, I've had to send it back a couple times to Staccato. One being the grip or the grip module here. It was the older style, and there's like embedded metal washers inside up here where the screw goes in. Well, those started separating from the polymer, and the gap here from the frame to the grip module there was pretty significant gap after shooting it. You'd tighten it up, shoot it a little bit more, and then the gap would open up again. So did have to send it back for that. The other thing was the selector was kind of grinding into the frame there a little bit more than normal wear. So they actually took it back and refinished it and reworked the thumb safety, but they took too much material off the thumb safety, so it started rocking out of place. So then I had to send it back again, and they had to fix that. So not huge issues, and their customer service was great. Had no issues with Staccato. They were awesome, frankly, very quick. But my whole point is that no gun is maybe you can argue some have less chance of having reliability issues, but overall, every single gun has the potential for failure. And it doesn't mean it's a bad gun. It doesn't mean it's a good gun if you don't ever have to send it back. Maybe you're not shooting it as much as some other people, whatever the reason may be. All I'm trying to say is that the Prodigy, I can't speak whether it's, long-term it's going to last as long as the Staccato or be as reliable overall as the Staccato. All I can speak to is fit and finish, which I've already talked about and I was pretty impressed with, and then shooting it. There's really no distinguishable difference between the Prodigy and the Staccato as far as shooting. Both are extremely pleasant to shoot. The Staccato is my favorite handgun, bar none, to shoot, and I felt the same way about the Prodigy. It was very quick with it. It just shoots, and it's just fun to shoot. I will say that I've never shot with the Primary Arms ACSS reticle in the Holosun, and this one has that reticle. And I don't, because I've been shooting red dots long enough, the ring doesn't really help me, so I actually deactivated the ring and just used the chevron. And I felt that it was, I was very quick with it. It's a very precise aiming point. One of the tests we did was from the draw on the beep and 115 yards or so. And with the Prodigy, I was at 165, and I'll roll that footage if it's not in the intro. And then with the Staccato, with the ACRO, and I'm not saying that it was the ACRO's fault or the Staccato's fault, maybe it was me, but it took me a couple takes, and then my best time with the Staccato was 2 shots it took me, and it was 290. So I was more accurate with this at distance, and I think that had a lot to do with the ACSS reticle because of that refined aiming point at the top of the chevron. So I can't say that's completely the Prodigy, but it is an accurate firearm. I was shooting a C zone IPSC target steel at 110, 115 yards from the draw, and it was extremely easy to hit. So the gun, I didn't like put it on a bench or on a bag and shoot for groups or anything like that. But anywhere that I wanted to hit, it hit. It was accurate. It shot great, no malfunctions, and overall pretty happy with it. One last thing I'll talk about that comes with the Prodigy, and this has been kind of a point of contention, which is strange to me because I have the exact opposite experience. So early on with the Prodigy, there was issues, or people were talking about certain issues and whatever, and a lot of people were blaming the mags. The mags are made by Durmag for Springfield for the Prodigy, and they're universal, so they work in any 2011 pattern gun. They come in 3 different types, and I think you get a 20. It's either 20 or 21 rounder, but you get this size that comes with it. You get the 17 rounder, and then they also make, this doesn't come with the Prodigy, but they also make a 26 rounder. So anyway, so full disclosure, I have a relationship with the guys at Durmag, good friends of mine. They do give me mags sometimes, but there's no expectations. Like, it's not like I'm some huge channel and they're trying to get me to review the product. They're just my bros, and they're great dudes, and they've given me mags. That being said, I've bought a lot of their mags. In fact, all but one of the 2011 mags that I have, which I have like 10 of them, I bought myself because I like the mags. So I think that's one of the best things about them. They're probably the most affordable 2011 mags on the market. And I can't speak what the issues were early on. Maybe there was a production run that wasn't, that had some kind of issue. But I've had one of their mags since a year before it was released as a T&E. That mag alone has, in one day, we put 1,000 rounds and over several different guns through it. And then I don't even know how many, because that's the mag that I use all the time. So I probably have, well over 1,000 rounds just on that mag after that. And I've never had a failure. They work great. The finish is, super durable. There's a little bit of wear, but I mean, this has a lot of rounds. I do prefer the polymer base plates over the aluminum ones. Mostly because if you're dropping on concrete and all that, you're not, it's just a little bit more resistant to it. But I love the Durmags, and I am biased in the way that I love the guys over there and that they, they're good dudes. But I would never talk about if I didn't like their products, I just wouldn't say anything about it. I would just be friends with them and not say anything. But I've really become kind of a fanboy of their products because there's so much that goes into what they do. I've seen it firsthand. I've talked to them, and I really know that they're true gun dudes, and they're always trying to improve a product. So that's one of my favorite parts about the Prodigy, and it kind of annoyed me when they were getting the buck was being passed on to the mags early on, because I've ran them in my Staccatos now for a couple years, and they've been awesome. So that's my little sidebar soapbox, but that is one of my favorite parts about the Prodigy. But overall, the question is it just as good? And I would say yes and no. Yes, in the way that fit and finish is, in my opinion, pretty much just as good. The shootability is just as good. Now, the only thing I can't speak to is the longevity. And I know a lot of the parts are MIM or cast or whatever, injection molded or whatever, whatever. They're not machined parts. And that is one thing. I don't love that in guns. So I probably, if I got a Prodigy, I would eventually change those parts out. But say you put another $300, $400, $500 into it, you're still significantly, because I've seen them as low as $1,300 now. So say for $1,800 you have a gun with all those parts custom fit inside of them, and I really think at that point it probably would be just as good as the Staccato. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll shoot this thing some more and then start having issues. But just from my initial impressions and shooting it, I really do think that it is in some ways just as good. Now, when I say yes and no, on the no side of it, I would say that from the factory, you're getting all the stuff that I would want to do from the Prodigy is already in the Staccato. So, like all those machine parts and all that. So, and a DLC coating instead of a Cerakote coating. So I do think that is better on the Staccato for sure. As a company, Staccato is probably, better. I don't know either of them, but just from hearing about both companies, I would probably say Staccato is a better group of people. But I mean, that's just my opinion. All I can go off is what I read and what people have told me. So, but beyond that, I think it is a great option. And if you want a 2011 and you don't want to spend a bunch of money or $2,500 or whatever in a Staccato, I think the Prodigy would be a great option and something to think about. And what I would tell someone is, buy a Prodigy, shoot the crap out of it. If parts start failing, replace those small parts, and then on the other side of that, you're going to have a super high quality gun. Fit and finish will be great, and just shoot it some more. So I think that for the price, it's the best. It's probably one of the best double stack 1911s considering the price on the market. There's some cheaper ones, the Turkish made ones, TSIS or Gershon or whatever Turkish company makes them. I have felt those and I haven't been impressed with them. I haven't shot one, but I just fit and finish and the slide to frame fit, and it kind of sucks. So I wouldn't go that low. I would say if you want that gun, or if you want a 2011 but you can only afford that one, then go buy a Glock or go buy a M&P or whatever. Any other quality striker fired pistols that are half the price. So overall, I would recommend it. I think it is a nice and well-made, well-built handgun. I might end up buying one here in the future because I really did enjoy shooting it. And if I buy one, I will not keep a stock. So that's the only caveat, is I would change out those parts probably right off rip, and then I would, potentially do some porting, and to me, I think it's a great option as a base gun for customization. Now with my Staccato, I've considered doing some aftermarket stuff to it, but overall, I just like it the way it is, and it works so well that I never really felt the need to change it with any aftermarket parts. But if I got this Prodigy, that's what I would get it for. It would be a base gun for a customized 2011 or double stack 1911, and I would just add, improve the internal parts, probably do some porting. Maybe I'd stipple the grip or something just for aesthetics and whatever. But overall, just as good, kind of, I guess you could say. But that's pretty much all I have to say about the Prodigy. Thanks again for joining, guys. If you do like the content, make sure you like, share, comment, all that good stuff, and I will see you next time. Be safe. I keep forgetting what I'm doing here.